The committee will come to order. The chair recognizes himself for an opening statement. While recent reports concerning the death of Osama bin Laden certainly close a major threat from 9/11, the war against terrorism is far from over, and we should be no less resolved to defend ourselves from any future attacks, including potential attacks on high-risk facilities with chemicals. According to testimony before the subcommittee last month, we learned that the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standard Program, or CFATS, has so far been a success, but still has a long way to go before it is fully implemented. 4 years ago, when the program was born, we were not sure what to expect, so I commend the Department of Homeland Security and the regulated community for working together to make CFATS work. In fact, progress has been so promising, the Department of Homeland Security stated it wants to see CFATS made permanent. The stakeholders, particularly owners, operators within the regulated community of high-risk facilities possessing chemicals, feel similarly, as they want to see a lengthy reauthorization with no major changes. I think this is a more than reasonable position, considering the combined multi-billion-dollar investments of the private sector and DHS over the last decade to secure these facilities from attack, not to mention the fragile state of the economy that we let this program get fully implemented before making serious alterations to it. Today I will offer an amendment, maybe more, that will make some modest but important changes to H.R. 908. One amendment will authorize up to $89 million to be appropriated each year for the 7 years contemplated in this bill. This figure is a ceiling, not a floor, and it matches the President's budget request for 2012. In addition, under the announced policy of the Majority Leader, which I fully support, we cannot increase authorizations without finding an offset. Since the last appropriated figure for CFATS programs was $100 million in fiscal 2007, we comply. I also want to mention that my ranking member and I are in communication on
issues that are important to him and really to anyone who has ports and facilities on the TWIC card, where we have not come to an agreement yet. We do believe we'll have agreement of some sort, maybe not 100% agreement, when we move to the full committee. Some of my colleagues may be tempted to vote no because the bill may not include enough of the provisions they want, or hoping to rejoin the debate sooner, or they want something else. Others on my side want a permanent, but we know we can't get there, so we're trying to meet in the middle to move this legislation forward. I urge my colleagues to favorably report this bill and send the Appropriation Committee a clear signal that the authorizing committee is not abandoning its responsibilities and can handle the program from here. Thus far, CFATS has proven to be a successful weapon in the fight against terrorist attacks and acts. The regulated community now accepts it. We should give both the government and the private sector the cleanest long-term certainty they need to progress and make CFATS work well for security and economic reasons. I urge an aye vote to report H.R. 908 to the full committee. I now recognize my friend, Mr. Green from Texas, for an opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding the markup on H.R. 908, legislation to reauthorize the CFATS program. The legislation is vital to the district that I represent. We represent the largest concentration of chemical producing facilities in the United States and in our district. We also represent the workers at these plants, and most of them live in our district. Because I represent both the producers and the workers, I take this legislation very seriously, as it's so important to the safety of my constituents. Over the past few weeks, my staff and Chairman Waxman's staff have tried to come to an agreement on several issues with the majority. To date, with the possible exception of one issue I raised on the continuity on background checks, these issues have not been resolved. I want to maintain the Energy and Commerce Committee's jurisdiction over CFATS, and I signed on to the underlying bill, H.R. 908, for the understanding that the majority and minority would work with our staffs on several provisions. We're continuing to work on these issues, and I remain hopeful we will have agreement between now and the full committee. For me, this legislation is not about political games. It's about safety in our country, especially in our district. And again, we have the largest complex in the country. I have a willingness to work with the majority if they decide to not take me up on the offer. you have the votes to move the bill, no matter what. But I think we have a much better bill if the majority and the minority would work together. And I have no problem with moving it to the full committee so we can have some more time to work. Yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back his time and thanks him. Now, the Chair reminds members that pursuant to the committee rules, all members' opening statements will be made part of the record. Are there further opening statements? My colleague from Pennsylvania, Mr. Murphy, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States has been the world's biggest manufacturing nation for over a century. But this year, in 2011, we lose that esteem to China. The chemical industry alone has lost 90,000 jobs in the last 5 years. Today, however, it's readying for a resurgence. The abundance of domestic natural gas has placed America's chemical makers close to the feedstock needed for everything from fertilizers to paints to plastics to resins. And the success of these domestic chemical employers is essential to our nation's economic recovery. So if the President is serious about his call to double exports in 5 years, then look at the chemical industry where we can see the job success we all seek. This successful $674 billion American chemistry enterprise accounts for more than 1/10 of United States exports and provides approximately 780,000 jobs in the United States. For the year 2010, U.S. chemistry exports increased by 17%, turning a $100 million trade deficit into a $3.7 billion trade surplus. Therefore, any federal policy to keep our plants secure, families safe, and the public protected must also produce the regulatory certainty and stability needed so chemical employers can continue to safely grow and create jobs. And I might add, we can control chemical plant security for plants in the United States, but we have no control for chemical plants made outside the United States. And here in the U.S., the safety of these facilities is non-negotiable. For example, a disinfectant plant in New York City had the potential to affect more than 12 million people in a 14-mile radius if terrorists were to attack that plant. Prior to and in the months and years after 9/11, one could have walked right into that chemical plant with a camera, take pictures, steal secrets, and never once be questioned. That is unacceptable, and since then the problems have been fixed. But in order to maintain this trajectory towards keeping the safety and security of chemical plants as a high priority, we need long-term authorization of this bill. CFATS specifically corrects vulnerabilities. Under the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards, or CFATS, more than 4,000 chemical plants and refineries and even hospitals and colleges have made significant improvements towards keeping our communities safe. In fact, since 9/11, the domestic chemical industry has spent an estimated $8 billion in plant security, and under the existing framework will spend another $8 billion. A long-term authorization will give the industry the certainty needed to make upfront capital investments and continue growing and succeeding. Without this bill, however, our concern is the companies will run the risk of making costly decisions today that might run afoul of new and confusing regulatory standards of tomorrow. So I thank my colleague Gene Green for working with me on this bill, as well as Chairman Shimkus and Chairman Upton, and hope we can bring this measure to the full Energy and Commerce Committee for consideration. Let's pass this much-needed legislation and ensure a key part of our Homeland Security policy is kept in place while also maintaining and growing jobs here at home. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Are there any other members seeking an opening statement on the bill? If not, the Chair calls up H.R. 980 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 908 to extend the authority of the Secretary of Homeland Security to maintain the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards Program.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill would be open for amendment at any point so ordered. Following Chairman Upton's protocols for markups, are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? If not, the Chair recognizes himself to offer an amendment relating to the authorization levels and asks the clerk to report.
An amendment offered by Mr. Shimkus.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the Chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes in support of the amendment. As ranking member, Waxman pointed out at a hearing last month, the majority leader's protocols require that for a bill to be scheduled for House floor consideration, it must not increase current authorizations for appropriations. H.R. 908 did not include an authorization figure because the appropriations for the CFATS for 2011 had not been decided at introduction. Without an offsetting cut, and it must not authorize for appropriations such sums as may be necessary, as we debated a lot in the last Congress. Silence in a bill on authorizations of appropriations is treated as such sums authority. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the CFATS program received $89.928 million for fiscal year 2011. This amendment sets the authorization for appropriations at $89.92 million in each fiscal year authorized under the bill. With adoption of this amendment, H.R. 908 meets the requirements for consideration by the full House. And without, I'm asking unanimous consent to correct, in essence, a drafting error for the end of the amendment, which originally had 2018, and we would like it to state 2017. Without objection. So ordered. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If there's no further discussion, the vote occurs on the amendment. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Is there any other amendments to be considered? If there are no further amendments, the question now occurs on favorably reporting the bill to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And the ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the bill approved by the subcommittee today. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The chair thanks all members and staff. The subcommittee stands adjourned.